Well, it looks like finally the WBC have given in to the pressures from no doubt Hearn in the background and Brazil's team in terms of what's actually happening with the whole sort of mandatory situation. And now they've ordered the fight. Looks like it's going to be for interim heavyweight WBC champion with Breazeale and Whyte. And that's great because, as I said in earlier videos, even though I'm not a massive fan of Whyte for one reason or another, I do think he's put in, outside of Joshua, I think he's put in the most work, and he definitely deserves a shot at a world title. I think out of everybody else out there, Fury is slightly extenuating circumstances with him returning after being stripped or vacating the belts. So I can understand why he was sort of parachuted in. But he definitely deserves a shot, and this is one step closer to having a go at the WBC. Obviously, it's not a foregone conclusion that he's going to beat Brazil. Although I think it'll be a tough fight. Brazil, he's an Olympian. I don't think his defense is the greatest. He's kind of defends with his face, which is dangerous in heavyweight boxing. But his game, he comes forward. He can pack a punch, and I think it'll be a very, very interesting scrap. I think it'll be very similar to Whyte Chisora the first fight. I can see it. I can see it sort of taking that sort of ebb and flow in terms of action. But if I was a betting man, I'll put my coins on Whyte winning that, just because I think he's been the more active over the past couple of years. I mean, up till Brazil faced, who was it, Negron, I think his name was. He hadn't fought for about 13, 14 months. That's a long time, for someone. I know he was trying to preserve his mandatory position, but that you should be at least fighting 2 or 3 times a year, especially if you're not a champion. You got to be fighting 2 or 3 times a year. But again, I know these are big guys taking big shots. You wanna preserve your faculties, and you can't be taking too many shots to the head. So maybe at the higher weights, I could probably see that. But 14 months, 15 months, that's a long time for someone looking to then get into the ring with someone as dangerous as Deontay Wilder. So, but it's great. It's great. I really hope Whyte wins that, and then that now puts a cat amongst the pigeons in terms of what happens. Because as we know, unification trumps a mandatory. So what does Joshua do? Assuming that he gets past Miller, and let's say Whyte beats Brazil, and Whyte beats Brazil, and then Whyte becomes a mandatory for the WBC. So, regardless of the situation between Wilder and Fury, whoever wins or loses that, what happens then? Do they then try to then make that fight with Joshua? But then Hearn's in a fantastic position, because if they don't take that fight with Joshua, they have to take that fight with Whyte, again assuming that he wins against Brazil. So he'll then have to they'll have to take that, because they'll have a year to satisfy that, of course. And who else would they give a voluntary shot at the title if not to unify? That's dangerous. I mean, if Whyte becomes a mandatory and you don't want to fight Joshua for unification, then who do you give a shot to after that? So we'll see how that pans out. Once we get details of when the fight is and where it is and all that sort of information, then I'll sort of give my view in terms of how I think the fight will sort of pan out. But nevertheless, it's good to see that the WBC are finally sorting out the whole mess at the top of the heavyweight division, especially with guys just hanging around waiting for that Joshua money. We're now going to start forcing some big fights, and that can only be good for the division.